Okay, so welcome to Gnosis Sojourn, everybody. This is our weekly show at 7 on a Sunday, UK time. Excuse the strange alien noise in the background. That's my cat. Who?
This is.
Carry on. Who was speaking?
No, it was me, Tim. This is the connection's really bad for me. Actually, this is no good.
Okay, so it was okay earlier, but it's
totally
not now.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. It was perfect before, and now it's just breaking up, and the camera keeps going off and everything. Yeah. So I'll hang with it.
Okay, it might well be your upload speed. So, you know, I would assume it's going to be to do with your internet connection rather than your device. You can try it on your phone if you want to, see if you have any better luck.
Yeah, better on my phone because it's a new phone and it's got like 64 gigabytes on it, so it's probably better. Yeah. So I'll shut off from this, and will you send me another invitation and I'll pick it up on the phone?
Yes, I'll send it to the same address, yeah?
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
So sorry, everybody. As usual, we have our technical hitches, which I'm sure will iron out as time goes on. So I can only apologise for people sitting there twiddling their thumbs. I hope you got a cup of tea. So I'm just
do with one.
You could do with one. I've just had a.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't make you one that I could deliver to you, but I wish I could.
Hey, you're not that far away, as I've found out.
Oh, really? Where are you then?
I'm the one in Windermere.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're down the road.
Yeah, near
well,
Stanford.
Yeah, you're 40 minutes away.
Come on, bring me my cup of tea.
Right. Jen, you're back.
Yeah, hold on.
Is that better?
It is. The other one's still ringing.
Forget about that one. Just turn it off.
Okay.
So, yeah, welcome, everyone. I'm just going to let Puds talk because she's full of beans at the moment, unlike me. We have our big moon tomorrow, which I just read a thing online to say that the police, a certain percentage of the police are superstitious and believe that there's going to be more crime tomorrow than any other day for a long period of time. So, you know, I believe them. If you're feeling extra wacky and extra weird, then, you know, me too. So, so we don't have Paula this week. So I'm just going to float along with whatever comes up. But I'm sure some of you would have seen the previous shows. So I guess that might have given people an opportunity to think about certain things that might have struck a chord for them or questions they want to ask. So before I get going, is there anything anybody wants to bring up, would like to talk about? Anything at all? I don't care how wacky it is. Like my shirt, look, this is extra wacky. Not as wacky as my personality, but you know, sorry.
Oh, the Mohican.
Oh yeah, and that, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, maybe.
I've got green hair, so there you go. That's my wackiness.
Green.
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm just checking. Anyone want to dive in? Any questions?
No.
Okay. Good.
I don't know. I'd just like to know about kind of this craziness about the moon, I suppose. Moon's always a good one. So yeah, Jen and I were talking about this earlier. Jennifer, but I call her Jen. I think I'm allowed. So we have So hello, Puds. Yeah, I know. I love you too, very much. You know, I tell you 100 times a day, but it's not enough, is it? So yeah, so we have a huge number of energetic influences, right? Whether that's on a cosmic level, on a planetary level, on a personal level, you know, with the people in our lives, situations in our lives, whatever. So there are so many different influences that affect us. Paula touched on this last week, that our bodies are 70% water.
and the moon, you know, controls the tides. You know, it affects the motion of water around the planet. So when you've got a moon that's closer to the Earth than it has been for what, 60 odd years, whatever it is, you know, that's going to have an energetic impact on the water in our bodies, right? And you know, there's water in every part of our bodies. So in terms of it affecting us, in terms of how we feel, especially emotionally, you know, then you know that really sums it up. That's why there are generally more murders on a full moon, you know, than at other times. As an example, you know, there are people get affected even if they don't realize it. So for me, I mean, years ago, whenever I used to see a full moon, you know, maybe 10 years ago, I'd always look at it and go, oh God, not again, you know, because for me, it would be such a traumatic experience, you know, of having all this emotional stuff come up and having to deal with it, or should I say, not knowing how to deal with it. So, you know, that's pretty full on, you know, especially when you're starting out in your journey. But I think over the years, as you go by, you get more, you learn how to deal with it, and you know what it's going to bring up, and you're also gaining tools that you can use to process what you need to process. Because what's the moon doing? It's shining a light on the darkness. And another way of saying that is it's shining a light on the darker parts of you. So it's showing you parts of yourself that you would otherwise not see, you know, if the moon wasn't there to shine it. So for example, if you're basking in the sunlight, you know, let's say you're meditating and you're having this wonderful experience, you might not necessarily see these darker parts that are there waiting to be met and to be loved and to be understood. So it's very necessary, you know, and it shows us stuff that we wouldn't be able to see otherwise. So and certainly with this moon being, you know, I know they talk about super moons a lot, and there was a number of them last year, but I think with this one being the closest in 60 odd years or something, you know, that I think that surely that's going to count for something. I mean, I know there was a load of earthquakes today and tsunamis and stuff, and you know, I'm sure that's more than coincidence. But yeah, so that's for me my outlook on the moon. So I hope that some of that's helpful. But hey, what can I say? You know, if we ever have any times where we feel like we need a bit of support, you know, get a cat. They're great, especially this one. She just purrs at me the whole time. You know, I don't have to do anything. She'll just purr for an hour without me saying or doing anything. So, you know, it's all good. So yeah, so there's a few things that came up in the week for me that I wanted to talk about. So one for me was sometimes people will talk about if you could name one thing on the planet, you know, in terms of people's daily lives, daily experience, that is causing more problems for us as a collective than any other. For me, it would be sugar. And what sugar in the last, I don't know, 80 years, maybe a bit less, has done to human beings at large is pretty staggering. And the impact it has on us on every level, physically, emotionally, on every level of our being. So, and just as a joke, one of the lines that came to me was that sugar is the root of all evil, right? And if you take the word evil and break that down, it means energy veil. So the word evil can be broken down to mean the veil of energy that separates us in our perception from being able to see the rest of what we are, from being able to see more and to be aware of more and to reconnect with our true selves. So when we are consuming something like that, it is strengthening and reinforcing that veil, I think, especially if it's in large quantities. And to reduce that substantially or remove it, I think over time can have a profound effect in terms of how we connect with ourselves and in terms of our awareness and our spiritual growth. I really think that can make a big difference. And I talk about that from past experience, not just of myself, but other people, but also my current experience with the journey I'm on with changing what I'm eating and other things that I'm doing. So we have to remember that sugar is one of the most addictive substances on the planet, right? Whether that's raw cane sugar or whether it's man-made sugar, which there are many different types, and they're all designed to make us addicted to them. So if you look at most food companies out there, especially the ones that are run by the big multinational companies making billions of dollars every year, they are invested in making more money. How do you keep making more money and ensure that you do that? You get people addicted to something. And that's exactly what's happening in the world. You know, as I was saying on one of the other shows, you know, pretty much every CEO around the world will tell you, as long as I've got a healthy profit margin and my shareholders are happy, you know, if it benefits humanity as a byproduct, then great. But money is the most important thing because that's how business works. So I think that's a really important thing to remember when we think about most food that's available in the supermarket, in the Western world, certainly, that we can pick up and eat. You know, it's all fueled by that same mentality of keep them addicted, keep them buying it. If they get sick, that's great, because my brother is the CEO of a drug company, and the more sick they are, the more drugs we can peddle them, you know, and we can keep them. So it's all connected, it's all linked together, and they're all feeding into it. I know I talked a lot about this last time and got a bit, you know, about it, but it's, you know, it's a huge subject that I think for some people it's so big, and it's like the lie almost is so big that it's like, well, I'm not even going to approach that because I can't deal with it. You know, you're telling me that my whole world, my whole reality is a lie, and I'm being lied to and I'm being manipulated on a daily basis. No, thanks. I'd rather go back and sit in front of the telly and have me a cup of tea, you know. So it's stuff like that I like to get into in these shows that can be explained relatively simply, that will help people to make better choices in terms of, for example, food, but also in terms of how they might choose to see the world, and how you know, they can make a difference for themselves and other people. You know, it's about increasing the light, spreading the love, you know, and reducing the fear. That's what we're all here to do, you know. Well, maybe not all of us, but I think most of us, you know, that in terms of the awakening on the planet, that's what we've chosen to do in this lifetime. That's why we're here. So I know I've said quite a lot there. So before I go on, does anyone have any thoughts or questions, or ask where the cat's gone, whatever?
I have something about the sugar, yeah?
Yeah.
So I don't worry about stuff like that, because I think, well, if I didn't, you know, use any sugar, I'm still this being showing up in a human body. You know, there's no getting away from that until the time is right. So what difference is it if I have sugar or if I don't?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. So this, obviously, it's personal choice, you know, and also what works for one person might not necessarily for another, you know. So our journeys are all highly individualized. So, you know, you may find that has no bearing on your state of mind or well-being at all, you know. So for you, you know, it's not even a consideration. For somebody else, it might be you know, a really big have a really big impact on them in terms of their energy, in terms of their well-being, in terms of their health, for example. You know, I'm just using that as an example. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is it's different for everyone, and you're quite right to point that out, that what we're talking about here, you know, it's information that will be more helpful to some than others. You know, that's all. So, but yeah, quite right for asking.
I think there was something that I just wanted to mention, which was you said before, you know, we're all here to sort of spread the love. What was those words, those couple of sentences you used? Spread the love.
Yeah, and so, you know, to increase the light around the world, you know, and to help each other on our journeys, right?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that's one of the big things for me is, you know, first of all, I've got to treat myself in that way initially, and in doing that, then I can do that to the world as well. But I think, you know, you've so got to look to do it to yourself, haven't you? You've got to increase the love for yourself before you can spread it to the world. Absolutely,
yeah, it's so true. And so yeah, that's something that each of us has to do. And like I was talking about in the last show, that is absolutely the priority. It has to be about our inner journey, and you know, loving ourselves first, like you just said, is crucial. It's the most important thing. Learning how to do that is the most important thing. And the more we do, like you just said, the more we do that for ourselves, the more we're able to do that for other people and the world at large. That's absolutely true. I think one of the things that that can be quite an interesting, not argument, but word to that effect, is when we think, well, I'll work on myself and I'll work on myself and I'll work on myself, and you know, and then, you know, I'm cultivating this space of peace and love for myself more and more. Eventually there comes a tipping point where you know that you've done enough where within yourself, and you'll keep doing it, but you're able to spread more and more easily for people. So I think that for each of us there's a tipping point with that where we kind of know it inside. And there were some people that will kind of say, well, you know, you don't get to be someone who can really do that until they're 70, you know, and they've spent 30 years meditating in a cave or whatever. I don't think it works like that. I think, once again, it's highly individualized. You know, there are some child prodigies that are able to do that when they're, you know, 12 and are doing that for the world, you know. So it's different for everybody, but I very much agree with what you're saying, Jen. It's yeah, just referring back to your point.
Yeah, I mean, I also just sort of like on the back of some of that continued thing that you just said is what was coming up for me then was, you know, I used to be quite an aggressive person because I had so much pain going on inside of me, and as I've worked on loving myself and shining the light into myself, I've become a much more loving person outside because I've started to love myself. You know, I'm not an aggressive person anymore because I'm not in as much pain. Mm-hmm. You know, that just came up for me as you were talking then.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, that's the benefit, isn't it, of doing this work and focusing on the inside, because it really does pay dividends, you know, over time, which is exactly, I think, what you've experienced.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's, I think that happens for everyone, and I think there's definitely a shift that goes on in terms of how we understand. Or excuse me one sec. I think someone else is trying to join the call. See what happens there. Yeah, how we love, because certainly when we are starting out on this journey, we are taught that the way to love is to just give and give and give to other people, you know, and no matter what, other people are priority, and we have to put them first and do whatever we can to make sure that they're okay and they're looked after. And that's, you know, and ourselves and our own self-worth, our own sense of love for ourselves is kind of not even entertained. that's certainly my experience as a child, and I think for a lot of people in the Western world, certainly. But I think that as we grow, we learn that doesn't actually work, because if we have no love or very little love for ourselves, how can we possibly embody that for other people and give that to other people? It's false. It's kind of it's not vibrationally anything like what we'd actually want to give to somebody, because we're not feeling it inside. Whatever's going on out there, it's a reflection of what's inside. So that's massively important. So we start to understand that it has to come from within. It has to start from within and grow there. And the more it grows and the more we embody it, the more we see it in the world around us. Because like I was talking about before, everything is a reflection. Everything that we see in this world is a reflection of us. So I think some people will probably get that more than others, depending on whether they've heard about that before or whatever. But once again, when we start out on this journey, we are taught that the world happens to us and we are at the effects of the world, and that we don't really have any power, and that we're at the mercy of events and coincidence and whatever. But part of our journey back to truth and to ourselves is we gain an awareness of the fact that we are the creators of this, and that we're the dreamers of the dream. And so it's a bit like lucid dreaming. When you start to learn how to control the dream, it's a very similar thing when we talk about this journey, which seems so real and feels so real. We start to understand that we're the creators of it, and then we start to gain gradually more and more dominion over it, more and more power, when we realize that it's coming from us. And if there's something happening in our experience that doesn't feel right, and isn't where we want to be or what we want to be, then it's showing us something that we need to see about ourselves, that we get the opportunity to meet within ourselves and heal within ourselves. And when we take those opportunities, then we kind of grow again, and our experience usually gets lighter and more easy and more harmonious. I think for most people, that's the journey that they're on. And hopefully what I'm talking about here will give some reassurance to those who have been doing this work, really hard work for quite a period of time. Certainly in the last few years, I know there's recently I've seen a lot of info out there for large numbers of people that have had such a grueling time over the last maybe 2, 3, 4 years of this constant inner work, like on a daily basis, that sometimes seems really, really hard, really challenging, but they're plugging away day after day after day, and there's like this determination that it's going to pay off. So I think what I'm saying is, certainly into the end of this year, as we've reached this completion of this cycle now, and we're starting a new one into next year, we are going to see the fruits of our labor. I see that message again and again and again. So hopefully that's reassuring to some people.
Yeah, I'm sort of like sort of want to say something there, if that's okay. And just a bit like the Matrix film. Once you've taken the red pill, or whether it was your decision to sort of go down the spiritual path in the first place or not, there is no going back. It's like you become aware of things and you go deeper, and there is actually no way of clawing your way back to ignorance.
So true.
And that's a little bit, that feels a little bit scary where I am actually at the moment, because I've got lots of fears coming up, but I can't go back now, even if I wanted to, which I don't. But I'm also in a place of feeling quite vulnerable and feeling very sensitive, and there's no place to go with it apart from forward, whether I wanted to or not. So edging my way forward and watching what comes, and in a place of fear and very open and feel vulnerable. I feel my nerves are on end a little bit, and I'm hoping that it moves through to a place of more of comfort with it. Although maybe that's not the point. Maybe I have to sort of like just completely be with this. But yeah, there is no going back.
Yeah,
because you can't do it, can you?
No. And it reminds me, you've just reminded me of another film which I don't know if anybody's on here has seen, Back to the Future 3, where they're on the train at the end, right, and they go past the windmill, right, and Doc says, you know, once we've gone past the windmill, it's the future or bust, we can't stop it, you know. So it's a bit like we're on that train and we've gone past the windmill, and it's like, shit, you know, there's nothing we can do, we just got to keep going. And yeah, you know, we're just waiting for the bit where, you know, we go over the edge and the tracks will somehow appear. And yeah, I think that really symbolizes our journeys, right? We've gone past that windmill and we're just waiting for that next bit.
Right, and the tracks are just suddenly going to appear, are they?
Yeah, exactly.
Just need to have faith. Need to have faith. No, you just jump.
Yeah, leap and the net will appear. Yeah. So that reminds me of another really great line. Faith brings experience, and experience brings faith. I love that, because those words really hold me, you know, because it's like, the more we have faith, the more we are inviting experience that will reinforce that faith once again. So it's like a continuous circle. It's like an upward spiral that we're on. And I love what you've just said there, because it's so true. You know, that, you know, it seems like a little word, but it's actually really big. And, you know, can really have, if we really embrace that idea, it can have a really profound impact on our day-to-day living. So yeah, apologies for the quotes, they just fall out of me sometimes, so you know, just bear with me. Just pop out here, there and everywhere.
Change is the only constant. That's it.
At
the moment.
Yeah, God. Yeah. So I'm going to put you in charge of quotes today, because that's another fantastic one. Yeah, so brilliant. Change, constant process of change in our lives every single day. Nothing stays the same. Everything is in flux. Everything is changing. Therefore, what is the point in trying to hold on to anything? Because it doesn't matter what you do, it's going to change. So, you know, you can either float down the river, you know, be kind, be loving, be generous, you know, be gentle with yourself, be loving to yourself, but know that you're floating down that river is going to be a lot easier than holding onto the banks, kicking and screaming. You know, we've all been there doing that. Doesn't work. But sometimes it takes a while to realize that. But I love that, because it really paints a picture of one way of living our lives and another way of living our lives. And, you know, I think we all know which we prefer. But it is really challenging, you know, especially with things that the ego has a hard time letting go of. People is probably the biggest one. I would say that the ego will have a hard time letting go of. You know, people in our lives that we value, you know, that we place importance on. And then when something changes and we struggle to let go of it, you know, the more attachment or valuing, you know, those two words are interchangeable for me. The more of that we have with whatever it is in the world, the harder it is to let go of. And therefore, the more inner work we have to do to bring ourselves to a place where we can let it go. There are other words, there are other phrases to use than let go, because I don't think that quite says it all. But, you know, hopefully that paints a picture. And that's going on for everybody, you know, pretty much in this world. That, you know, whatever it is that we value the most and we attach to the most, that's what we're going to struggle with the most. So, Stephen, I've noticed you've just joined us there. So, hi, and a warm welcome to you. You're a bit of a regular now, so it's just a comfort to see your lovely face on another Sunday evening. So yeah, so any quotes you want to bring up, please do keep them coming, because that's always a really good one for me. I'm just going back to that again. I'm sure we've all in our lives had experiences of things, whether we're, it's in recent times or when we were a child, that were really important, or even in past lives, if any of us remember our past lives or events in our past lives, a situation or a person that we were really attached to, and it had a lot of value for us. It was really important. There's a lot of energy attachment cords between two people, for example. Those things can stay with us sometimes, depending on how much of that inner work we do. So I certainly know from my own recent, and not so recent experience of, for example, soul contracts and karmic ties with certain people, that I've worked really tirelessly hard with to dissolve and to let go of, and to work with in the best possible way. But sometimes it can run so deep, and the energy involved can be so convoluted and complex, that just clicking our fingers and saying, right, I think I've done enough work now, I'll just drop that one. It doesn't work like that. I'm sure some of you will resonate with that. It's a real hard slog. I think the good news is that if we talk about coming back to the planetary stuff and talking about that again, we're now at a time, like I was saying earlier, where we're at the end of a cycle and start of a new one. And right now, for all of us collectively, is all about finally being able to drop these karmic attachments that have been going on for many, many lifetimes, and to embrace a new us that we didn't even know existed, and it's being born right now. This information comes from a lot of different sources, but hopefully for everybody out there, it's useful, and it gives us an idea of where we've been and all the stuff we've had to work through, and also what's coming. And I think for a lot of us, even certainly for me, the scale of the changes that are coming in terms of ourselves, in terms of how we feel about ourselves inside, and in terms of how we get inspired and how we perceive the world, that there's going to be a new us really shining through in the coming weeks and months. It's just going to explode outward. So be open to some pretty miraculous, amazing things, because the time is certainly now. So even if that sounds a bit far-fetched and airy-fairy or whatever, just be open. That's all. So
I was going to say something a minute ago just about attachment. When you were talking about attachment, I think for me, the one thing, as well as the myriad of a million different issues that sort of go on in your mind and everything, but attachment to people, those closest, dearest family members that you actually have, and death. If you've known death closely, which a lot of people have, and everybody does at some point, and you that's one of the things that I struggle with. And then having children, and the attachment, I have a huge attachment to my children, and the thoughts of death, having experienced that very closely with another family member. And then, see, when anybody talks to me about attachment, is attachment to people, and those two things, we're all going to die, and that's very scary. And I don't know how to unattach myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to do that. And
it's huge, isn't it? I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I would say children is the biggest out of everything, especially for I can't talk about this life, but I'm going to reference other lives, if you can stay with me on this one, where when you're a mother, and you have these offspring, you know, they are the biggest thing, you know. They mean the world, they are your world, you know. They're 20 odd years out of your life where no longer are you just this identity, they are you as well. So, you know, and also there's this sense of protection and wanting to provide for them and give them the best in life and all of this, right? I mean, I could list 100 different things there, but, you know, so in terms of looking at something out there in the world and saying, I value that, that's important to me, that means a lot to me, you know, I absolutely agree with you. It's huge. It's huge. And how do we work with that? And yeah, Jen, I love what you've said there. You know, I think that, like, you know, there are a number of teachings out there that help us, that help us with that in terms of how we look at bodies, essentially. You know, if we come away from the word people and just look at that child over there as a body, it's a body, and it seems so real, and it seems so important, you know, just like my own body when you were talking about death, you know, and like, well, this is my body and it's going to die, but hold on, I am this body, I'm identified with it, it's me, it's what I am, right? So what we are, I think when we're ready, what we're looking for is something as a teaching or a system of learning that helps us to understand the truth of what we are, as opposed to the illusion of what we are. You know, there has to be a road away from one toward the other. And it doesn't mean that you disregard the body or don't love this body or other bodies or care, you know, because of course you're going to want to do that, but it's a shift in perception about what is real and what isn't. You know, that's fundamental to helping us make that transition. And I know, Jen, a lot of this you'll resonate with, but just for other people, that, and certainly in my own experience, that's the real game changer, when we can start to get a sniff of what we really are. So what am I really? You know, what am I really in truth? You know, I appear to have this body, I appear to go about in this world and do all this stuff with objects and with bodies and whatever and situations, but let me just introduce that idea into my mind. If that's not the truth of what I am, then what am I? And once we start asking those questions, it will then lead us onto deeper and deeper awareness and understanding of, I'll use the phrase, what lies beyond this world, what lies beyond this reality, or this dream, as some people will phrase it. So I guess that's how I would start it. I'm not sure how deep we want to go just today in terms of addressing that one, because we could talk about that for days.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't really mean to sort of like
no,
the biggest
it's a good
sort
subject.
of like thing that we might fear in life.
Yeah, it's a good subject.
It's just mine. It's where I'm at. You know, it's when it's the attachment for me. You know, when I first had children, I realized that I'd cut off a piece of my heart and then let it live outside of me, you know, went bouncing off around, and I thought, oh my God, what have I done? You know, now I've got to like watch this fall over and hurt itself, and it sort of impacts my heart far more than it's probably hurting them, you know. So yeah, it's my main thing really, and trying to follow my spiritual path, knowing that I can't let it go. I'm looking forward to being able to dissolve that, and I know at some point that will probably happen. If I continue to work with it, which I, as I said, don't feel like I've got a choice. I've got to do it now. So, but I'm looking forward to when that can dissolve and I can feel some peace about that which I've done. So yes, it's huge for me, but it might not be the main issue for anybody else, you know. So
I think,
Jen, the way I see it is anything that takes us out of our comfort zone is our learning. You know, we're here to learn, so anything like that takes us out of our comfort zone is what we're here to learn.
Yeah,
And you can't just fast forward to the end.
Why not?
Yeah. I know, I so wish we could. But then what's the point otherwise?
Yeah, you're absolutely.
That's
you're
the thing.
absolutely
So
right.
the will, it is always, oh my God, it's always going to be a process, isn't it? But
Yeah.
it's just that staying open to, you know what, that's what I'm here to learn, and it's okay, and everything's going to be okay. And you know, you're on this spiritual path. So I would just say, just be thankful that you've jumped onto the path.
Yeah.
You know, no matter where on the path you are, it's just, you're on it.
Yeah, that says it all, doesn't it? I mean, you know, ultimately, how many more lifetimes do we want before we don't need to come back and be in a body again, right? I mean, that's that in a nutshell. That's what it is. So, you know, but at the same time, you're also right in what you're saying there, in that the script is written. You know, you'll read that in a lot of different texts from a lot of different traditions, and so we're all playing our part while we're here, and we're all here to do what we're all here to do, and it's going to take as long as we chose it to take. So, you know, let's kind of stop worrying about it. But I'm not being insensitive to what you said there, Jen, because, you know, I think you made a great point about, okay, so I had my heart, which I thought I was dealing quite well with, and then I had these children, and it's like two big pieces of my heart just went boom outside of me, you know, and suddenly I've increased almost this sense of separation, you know. There's this piece of me over here and that piece of me over there, and they're totally separate from me. Oh my God, what do I do? Right? And so what you're talking about there, I think, is this process of reintegrating yourself and realizing that nothing outside of you is you, right? Most importantly.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're just all me anyway.
Yeah. So in truth, everything that when we look at it, it's all about perception and how we look at things. So the ego, which is all about separation and fear and scarcity and pain and suffering, right? When we're looking at things like that with the body's eyes, and we're saying that object or that body over there is real and it's important, you know, we're reinforcing that idea. We're reinforcing the ego. You know, we're keeping it running. So as I know you study similar stuff, so you'll know, obviously, when we shift our perception to seeing with eyes that are not of the body, and I don't mean physically seeing, I mean in terms of how we perceive the world, how we think about the world, how we think about ourselves. So we start to see that body, that child, for example, isn't separate from us. They are us. And they're just a reflection. They're just a mirror. So if we look at everything that's outside of us as like a hologram, it's all a hologram. And everything we're seeing is just a mirror image, really, of a part of us that we've forgotten about. So if you imagine it like there's a mind, and we'll use, you know, a circle as an example. We have one mind, and it's whole and one and complete, and and the totality of all that is contained within that mind. There's only one mind. And then what's happened is, for reasons that I won't go into now, that mind has split off an infinite number of times into all these different little facets, and they all have lost the ability to see the whole. So each of those little facets thinks it's alone, and thinks it's separate, and thinks it's isolated, and that's its world. That's all it knows. And that's effectively what happens when we start out on our journeys. When we might be going a bit deep here, but bear with me. When we first incarnate into bodies on this level, this is how it feels to us. We're alone. We're fearful. This is all there is. There is nothing else. Everything is separate from everything else. You know, there doesn't feel like there's a lot of love going around. There's a lot of fear, a lot of scarcity, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, and a lot of death. And that's how the reality that we see before us looks. And gradually, as we go along in our journeys, lifetime after lifetime, slowly these barriers inside that mind, all these facets, they start to break down. And so slowly the awareness grows, and the connections between, the walls in the mind in these different areas start to break down bit by bit. They start to dissolve bit by bit. So our awareness grows, you know, and what we actually become aware of is ourself, because there's only one mind. But there's one mind, but it looks like there are many. It looks like there are all these separate individual minds when really there's only one. So if you look at it that way, it's like this whole that's fragmented almost endlessly. That's a good way to look at it, you know. And as we go along our journeys, and if we keep in mind that we're going to keep breaking down those barriers in the minds, then we are, you know, we're kind of reassuring ourselves, I think, and helping ourselves to realize that's part of the journey in terms of gaining awareness. It really is a return to ourselves. People sometimes think that the spiritual journey is about the return to God, which is one aspect. Yes, absolutely. It's probably the best way of saying it, but, you know, but it's about the return to ourselves. It's about the return to the truth of what we are. So I'm not quite sure how I got onto that, but I just wanted to sum that up in a way that might be hopefully fairly easy to understand for people. And if I seem like I've totally gone down an alley, then please let me know.
No, I totally get it, because one thing I find difficult, and I know obviously everybody does, is the fact that we want to be individual. It's our ego that kind of says, I'm an individual, you know, I'm going to be different. I'm going to work as this, and I'm going to learn this. I'm an individual. And that's the most difficult thing, because even though I know that's the truth, what you've said, it's difficult because it doesn't feel. But then I do want it.
I love it.
That's the craziness of life, isn't it?
Absolutely is. And I love that. But I love what you said there, because that's part of the mastery of this experience, is to say, yes, I know, you know, it's paradox, isn't it? It's like saying, right, I know over here that this is true. You know, I know the truth of what I am. You know, I feel it, I know it. But at the same time, over here, I'm living in this world, and there's these things that I want, and I'm going to have them, and I'm going to make it this way, and I'm going to do it this way, and da da da. So you have these two seemingly complete opposites trying to coexist. You know, and one person said to me recently, a good way to look at it is it's like flying with both wings. So we're aware of the truth, and we're also aware of this experience that we're having, and they're both okay. You know, we don't have to chop one out and try and just live with one, because, you know, you can't walk on one leg. You know, you need both. So I love thinking of it that way, because it's like, okay, initially in the mind it's difficult, because with paradox, you know, I love talking about paradox because that's a huge one. You know, it's like, okay, so you're telling me this one over here is true, right? And then you're telling me the complete opposite, polar opposite of that is also true. How can they both be true? I'm not buying it. It's either one or the other, right? And it really screws with your minds until you get to a place of acceptance, and you can just kind of say, okay, well, what if they're both true? Can I deal with that in terms of my mind? Can I deal with that? And it's like, well, yeah, okay. And then when we kind of have that acceptance about it, we then start to come back inside ourselves, and we get to this place of like surrender to it, to this idea of paradox. It's at that point, I think, where we start to cultivate the opposite, which is neither are true. You know, in terms of my mind and in terms of how I think, even my perception of how I think about the truth of what I am, that's not the truth either, because it's all based on thought, right? And thought isn't the truth of what I am. I'm beyond that. So, you know, we then get to that space where it's like, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So then we come to what some people call the 0 point. the 0 point, which is where instead of having these extremes in terms of paradox and polarity and duality, which duality is probably the best word to use, we can then come back to this point where we're just in the middle. You know, it's like, yeah, okay, that's going on over here. And yeah, okay, that seems to be going on over there. And I can just exist in this 0 point where it doesn't matter, because, and some people call it the middle road, where you're walking the middle road. And I love that, because you lose interest. You lose interest in the idea of duality and polarity. And what are both of those but separation? You know, it's separation once again. Paradox is separation. You know, it's like I have a seeming truth here, which is total opposite from that one over there. That's separate. They're completely separate ideas that can't seem to both be true. But I love that, because it cultivates that idea inside of us of stillness and of surrender. And hopefully that's made sense to some of you, but it's certainly great comfort to me.
Stillness doesn't always stay still, though, does it?
Absolutely not. Like you said earlier, you know, change, you know, this experience is constant change. And we, you know, even when we think like, oh yeah, I've got to this point, you know, and I'm really loving this understanding and awareness that I've got, and I can just sit and be still with it. And then something will come along in your experience, you'll be like, for a while, you know, something new that I've got to deal with. And integrate and work with, you know. And like you said earlier, that's what we're here to do. You know, our experiences are very much about learning and growing. You know, I think you said as well that if we're not doing that, then we just stagnate. You know, we're not in alignment with our soul's purpose, which is to learn and grow. That's what we're here to do, is learn and grow. So yeah, there's so many things to keep in awareness, you know. And I think for the ego, you know, for other parts of us, it's fine. It's like, yeah, this is great. But for the ego, it's a bit like, oh my God, I'm spinning all of these plates here, there, and everywhere. You know, trying to keep all these things in awareness. Over here, how can I do it? You know, there's so much going on all at the same time in terms of these ideas and these concepts and these truths, these things that I know, that I feel inside. You know, how can I keep all these plates spinning? And then we stop trying, and we kind of surrender and accept and trust. I think you mentioned trust, and have faith. You know, these are all words that we bring in to our being on a daily basis. And the more we do that, the more at peace I think we feel, and the easier each day can be when we just allow ourselves just to, you know, it's a bit like giving all of that over, handing all of that over to a higher power, you know, and just surrendering. There's such great power in just doing that. So
it's so when you live each day to day in just your own company, though, isn't it?
You what? Sorry.
It's so much easier to stay in that place when you live in just your own company.
Yeah, I wonder why I live in a house on my own.
When you go out into the world, it's like, oh my God, smack with
people,
reality. Yeah,
people, no, don't do that to me. Yeah. It's so true. I think, you know, there's definitely a balance to be struck there, in that we definitely need our alone time, so that we can do this work that we've been talking about today, so that we can heal and integrate and grow. But at the same time, we definitely need experience via other people to show us things about ourselves, you know, to help us along. Because let's face it, anytime we have an experience that we don't enjoy, that we don't like, it's showing us something. It's showing us something about ourselves that we need to see. Because if we're not at peace, if we're not feeling peaceful, then there are going to be experiences that will come that will help us to see what it is inside ourselves that we need to work with. Now, I think for most people, you know, whether you feel like you're on a spiritual journey, spiritual path or not, the big one, the absolute big one, is about grievances and about forgiveness. So I think for so many people, you know, there are things that seem to happen in our experience that seem so hard, so difficult, so challenging. You know, maybe it happened last week, maybe it happened 30 years ago, but they seem like such massive things, where maybe someone's stolen from us, or, you know, they've abandoned us, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, when we haven't got to all of this stuff yet, you know, we're still confused. We don't know what's going on. So we feel a grievance toward it. You know, we feel pain, we feel suffering. So to come to a space where we can start to firstly start to understand what's happened, and then to start to say, can I start to forgive it? Can I start to work to heal it instead of holding on to the resentment and the pain? And this is a huge one for so many people, I think, and it's a great one to talk about, because I've certainly known vast numbers of people in my life who have had these grievances and have held on to stuff and couldn't let go. And you know what? The only people that were ever affected by that really were themselves. They were the ones that really suffered as a result of having that kind of thinking.
And my friend once told me, like, having that thinking about somebody else or a situation is like holding a hot coal, you know, or throwing a hot coal. It's burning you.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah,
you know, I love that.
Yeah, or a bit like when you're pointing a finger, right? It's like these three fingers are pointing right back at you. You know, that's what happens. Anything you send out, whether it's a thought, a feeling, you know, words, actions, whatever it is you're doing, it's coming back to you.
I've got a good one on that. I'll never forget. It's like being angry at somebody is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yes, yeah, so true.
I know. It's like, oh my God, you're so right, that.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But at the same time, it's a hard one to learn. Love that, Jen. Thanks. It's a hard one to learn because we are so programmed and so conditioned to think that way. You know, collectively, in terms of culture, you know, socially, our families, you know, we are conditioned to think that way. So no wonder it's so hard to break that cycle. So when something happens, you know, whatever it is, however seemingly minor or major it might be, to come to a place where you stop having a grievance regarding it is massive. You know, it really shifts how we feel. It seems like it's about other people, but really it's about ourselves. So we get into this thinking that, yeah, okay, I'm going to change that thinking about that other person or those other people, and that's going to make a difference. But actually, it's a message that we're sending to ourselves, because it always is a message that we're sending to ourselves every time, wherever it is we're doing. So it's so important to have that, to do that anyway. But then in time, you know, can come the understanding that, actually, I'm doing this for myself and for them. But it's coming back to me anyway, whatever it is I do. And there's such great power in that, because I think we talked about this before. It's like there's such great power in that, because we start to realize that whatever I do to somebody else, I'm doing to myself. So hold on a minute. I want to start thinking very carefully about what I'm doing and what I'm saying and how I'm thinking regarding other people or any situation that's going on, because anything that I do, I'm really doing to myself. Just that one concept, that one understanding, that bit of awareness in the mind, you know, to keep that in the mind on a daily basis, that changes everything. It changes everything about your life, about how you deal with people, about how you feel about yourself. It is an absolute game changer. So I love that one. It's brilliant.
You are totally like hitting a major nail with a major hammer at the moment for me, because weirdly, I've been having some issues at work, and I've actually been pushed to put in a grievance, like a formal grievance at work. And at the moment, I've just been like, I was so like wanting to go for it. And then just these past few days, I've just been like, whoa, hold the horses. Like, I just need to feel what all of this is. And so it's interesting that you've brought that up. So I'm still going to sit with it for a bit.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. But what I would say with that is, you know, keep your balance with it, because on the one hand, you know, if someone's diving over your desk and jumping on you, you know, then, you know, that's not okay. So it's not like you're condoning what anybody else is doing, you know, but at the same time, it's obviously going to be showing you something. I think you know that anyway. So, you know, so it's like this self-inquiry becomes, okay, and I'm sure you've had this, okay, what is this situation showing me? What am I learning from it? Why is it appearing for me? You know, I chose this. So why did I choose it? What is the learning? What am I being taught? What am I teaching myself? So when you get to that, it's like you can kind of step back from it a bit and see it from a different level. And definitely the most important thing is to understand why perhaps that person is doing what they're doing. So it's thinking like, it's not like thinking they've done that and it's really bad and really wrong and I've got to do something about it. Instead, think of it like, I wonder why they're doing that. You know, I wonder what's going on for them at a deeper level, perhaps in terms of their upbringing, you know, when they're a child, perhaps, you know, in their young life experiences that they've had that have made them that way. So you start to develop this sense of compassion and empathy about what's going on for that person. And you realize that in terms of them and what's going on for them, it's not about you at all. It never was. It's their own stuff. It's their own stuff that they're projecting and they're trying to deal with. You know, so I think that's a great one because, you know, you can really shift in terms of your experience and how it's going to turn out so much just by allowing yourself to see it from their perspective. All that said, though, you know, you've still got to be boundaries and look after you, you know, and look after your own energy. And like we were talking about earlier, you know, you're working to fill up your own cup, you know, and when you're filling up your own cup with love, it overflows with other people. You know, it's like you don't have to try. You don't have to do loads of hard work to try and love people or be nice to people or anything like that. It just happens anyway as a side effect of you filling up your own cup. That's how to love, you know, that's really how to love. So I think those 3 or 4 things we've talked about there will definitely, you know, help in your situation.
Definitely.
And interesting that that's come up for you, you know, in the last recent times.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. Yeah, I love that. I love that when you get a great synchronicity, you know, that of something that's going on where we can really take some relatively easy to understand and integrate kind of ways of thinking and use them in our daily lives. You know, I love that. You know, that just makes me sing, lights me up. So I'm just keeping an eye on the time. So we might wind up quite soon. So I'm just wondering if any of you lovely people have anything else that you would like to talk about before we will disappear and go and enjoy the moon.
No, I'm all right.
All right. So I'll take yes. Okay. So your silence is golden, and I just want to say thank you. It's been really great talking today. You know, we've touched a lot of different areas, and every time it's different. You know, and the right stuff comes up at the right time. And I've suddenly got a burst of energy from somewhere, probably from this lovely interaction with all of you. After feeling quite blasted today, so this is all good. But thank you once again, and thank you, Jen, for your support in setting this up as well today. So just for everybody else, this is every Sunday, 7 o'clock UK time. The other times are listed in the post for the events. And obviously, if you have any questions about today's show, or you've got any comments, or anything that you want to discuss next time, then please let me know. Also, we are doing before every show, we do like an hour before a test call, just to make sure that anybody who's got technical problems will hopefully be able to resolve, so we can get started with you. So yeah, thanks once again, everyone, and it's been a pleasure, and we'll talk again soon. Okay.
Thank you. You started off with a purring cat. Do you want to end with a snoring dog?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, she's awake now.
Oh, lovely. Is it?
Oh, bless. What a sweetheart.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's perfect. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tim.
All right.
Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.